Welcome to the internet, live from the Marriott Library at the University of Utah in a dungeon somewhere in the Logan metropolitan area. This is the Red Line Podcast. I'm your host, quote, light rail enjoyer and Koch Brothers hater, Dunstan, and these are my co-hosts.
Kyle, quote, nickname, unquote.
You were supposed to come up with a nickname.
And
that was the point of it.
You took mine. Alex, quote, I guess I'm in a dungeon now, unquote, Fielder. Today we're discussing one of America's transit archnemises, the Koch Brothers, or Koch Brothers. Just how did these diabolical oil billionaires work to derail our transit projects, and what can we do about it? All this after the news.
One of those pronunciations is right, and the other one's wrong.
It's Koch.
Yeah, I know. Maybe we should just leave that as an exercise for the listener and switch back and forth the whole episode.
Yes.
Do.
New York City, open gangway cars are coming for you, whether you like them or not. The MTA has recently put one of its first ever open gangway trains into service on the C line. The R211T will be tested on local tracks only for now, as there are concerns about fire safety and the ability of conductors and drivers to conduct safety checks in the event of emergency braking. No matter how you slice it, though, it's nice to see some modern rolling stock coming to America's most used subway system.
But yeah, modern rolling stock. That's cool.
They like it, supposedly. But it is on the C, so no one cares.
What's the C?
The C? It's a train. It's a line.
I didn't know that.
There are like 27 or 28 lines. It's like not easy to remember.
I mean, but even after looking at the map and writing some of them, I don't remember the C.
Oh, I think it goes on, I don't know. Let me look up a map real quick. New York subway map.
.co.uk.
Oh, it's so big. This is very confusing. You guys need to stop having such a large subway map.
Yeah, you can't even handle it.
Get a smaller subway, would ya? Looks like it goes from, like, Brooklyn to Manhattan. One of, like, 20 different lines that does that. So
helpful.
You're welcome. In other news, the Kansas City streetcar welcomed the first of 8 new vehicles last Friday as streetcar number 807 rolled into the agency's shop. These new cars are sorely needed as next year's extension to the University of Missouri at Kansas City will double the streetcar's route length and, hopefully, its utility.
Woo! Streetcar
Yay.
extensions.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What vehicles are they exactly? Do you know?
No, but we'll look. They're from the one that I don't like.
Oh.
Alston.
No, not Alstom. Alstom doesn't make streetcars.
Good.
Hopefully Kansas likes them.
I hope so. It's a CAF Urbo.
I'm gonna look this up.
It looks very similar to every other light rail vehicle you've ever seen.
Cool.
Yep. Checks out.
And to go with the new vehicles, Kansas City Streetcar themselves let us know that they have also expanded their maintenance shed. It can now accommodate anywhere from 16 to 19 streetcars. It's got more tracks. It's got an underground wheel touring machine. Whole shebang.
Underground?
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works. It sounds cool, though.
Oh, okay, yeah. Kansas City Streetcar wanted to let us know that they are no longer operating out of a shed.
They are now operating out of a bougie, quote, shed, unquote.
A large shed.
Huge shed. I know. Sounds like some pretty cool kit. And the expansion will be ready to ride in 2025 and lots of side running.
Cursed.
Or curb running.
Cursed. Why would you do that? Moving on. I have opinions about street side running, but doesn't matter. They built it anyway.
Do.
Why did you make it a different font?
I wanted a cooler font.
I'm getting it into...
All right, so what are we talking about today?
Well, our question for today is, what is a Nashville?
Oh my God. Why is that the question?
We're bringing it back.
We're bringing it back just because Kyle doesn't like it.
Yeah. And to answer the question I just asked, Nashville is the fourth largest city in the American Southeast, anchoring a metro area of more than 2 million people. It's the epicenter of much of the American music industry and is home to such landmarks as the Grand Ole
Opry.
Opry.
The Grand Ole Opry, yeah.
I guess I don't know that one. As well as a number of other famous performance venues.
Yeah, it's the Music City. It's the Music City.
What is the Grand Ole Opry, just out of interest?
It's just like a performing arts venue. It's very famous, kind of like where a lot of like once you've performed at the Grand Ole Opry, if you're like a rock and roll or country star, like you've made it basically.
Okay. Sweet. Well, Nashville is growing rapidly, having grown by more than 20% between the 2010 and 2020 censuses. What has this resulted in? Some of the worst traffic in the nation. In 2023, Forbes ranked Nashville as the worst city to commute in the United States, with the average commuter spending 40 hours in traffic per year.
I assume that's just additional due to, quote, delay, unquote,
oh, yeah,
that's
delay.
On top of their already excessively long commute.
Uh-huh. Which is an average of 30 minutes.
Cool.
Which is quite long. Which is quite long. Like, my commute is like, I don't know. I walk pretty fast, so my commute is like, I don't know, 15 minutes. But
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, now everybody, more audience participation on the Red Line podcast. Aren't you so excited? So I have here a map of Nashville's public transportation. And what you'll notice about this map is that it sucks.
Looking at map. Please wait. Audience, also look at map. Linked below. That is alarmingly radial.
It is very radial.
It's got a downtown inset. That's nice.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the key. Could we make the frequencies on these routes any more confusing?
No.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
So their frequent bus service includes 7 routes with 10 to 30-minute frequency depending on day and time.
So yeah, it's we have bad traffic, right? And you would think, we have the worst traffic in the country somehow, despite being Nashville. What could we do about this? Oh, I don't know. Maybe public transportation?
Never.
Well, they have a public transportation system, which is extremely myopic, moving just 27,000 people per day. Significant portions of the metro area are basically entirely unserved by public transportation, and those that are generally served have poor service to begin with. There's a core network of decent frequency routes topping out at 10, 12, or 15-minute service, but these are largely limited to the core city. Some of these have been branded as BRT Light in the past after the failure of a spoiler, but that branding appears to have largely been abandoned.
Yeah, so some of these BRT, quote, I'm putting this in heavy quotations, BRT routes have like TVMs at some of the stops and good passenger amenities, but like calling them BRT even puts like the FX puts these to shame. Like,
ouch. These are just a bus with nice stops.
Yeah, and 60-foot buses because, you couldn't
run more 40-foot buses?
No.
Never.
Well, what's more, the service that does exist is highly radial. There's very few cross-town routes.
I think that there's only like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bus routes in the entire system that do not go to the downtown transit center.
That's not very many.
Yeah. And most of them are just like bad. So there's just no crosstown service.
Jeez. Well, in addition to the bus network, there's the WeGo Star, Nashville's commuter rail. It operates bi-directional peak-only service to Nashville's eastern suburbs and has ridership that you would expect for such a system. When you take into account the basically complete lack of feeder bus service, it makes even more sense that it gets 350-ish riders per day.
These are like West numbers, except it's way worse than West because it's way longer. And it got like 1,000 daily riders before the pandemic, which is better, but still bad.
Well, maybe if we didn't have peak-only service, and maybe if you could get to the damn stations.
What a novel idea. I would like to point out how weird the name WeGo Star is.
Well, it used to be the WeGo Music City Star, which is even weirder, but...
All branding, no service.
Yeah. It's like they were talking about the Beatles and someone misheard Ringo Starr and was like, oh, WeGo Star? That's a great name.
This is a sorta moment. This is a SEPTA we're getting there moment.
Except in this case, they're not.
Well, 350 people are.
Ish.
Good for them.
Well, surprisingly, it was one of the nation's cheapest lines to construct. The whole 35-mile line cost $41 million to build when it started back in 2006. But sometimes you get what you pay for.
Did they even weld together the track, or did they just start running trains?
I think it shares with freight.
Oh,
so
it doesn't even
just,
have its own track.
So it just, all the money they spent was to build stations and to get like
vehicles and maintenance.
Some vehicles and build a maintenance shed.
Well, I'm terrified to find out how fast it goes. If it's on a bad freight corridor.
Oh, I should look at the schedule and see what its like running time is for 35 miles.
Yeah, that is a pretty important metric, especially with such limited service.
Yeah, and if they didn't do any track improvements.
That also explains why the service is so bad, because it doesn't even have a track.
That's probably...
What do you mean there's no nearby transit lines? It won't show up on Transit app because all of its runs have already occurred today.
What? What about the other direction?
I can't... No, it's done. Okay, I gotta look it up on the internet, I guess.
No, I got you.
Okay, so it's the first train of the day is from Lebanon to Nashville. It leaves at 5:40 a.m. and gets to downtown Nashville at 6:35. So that's 55 minutes for 35 miles. So a bit slower than Frontrunner.
For some reason, I thought it would be a bit slower than that, to be honest. But
I mean, freight track is normally fine.
That is averaging 40 miles an hour, which for diesel with this many stops is like fine.
So anyway.
Now if it was electric...
I don't think it'd be worth electrifying this at its current...
yeah, you need to get your own track
levels.
first.
Yeah, but there are theoretically plans for 6 more lines to serve the whole metro area, but there doesn't seem to be much movement on that front.
Yeah.
Some other interesting things, the Downtown Transit Center, WeGo is the brand of that, the branding.
Yeah, the branding of the Nashville Metropolitan Transit Authority is WeGo. So if we ever say WeGo again in this episode, that's what we're referring to.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty poor branding, but I don't want to bash it too much.
Hey, it's better than like Nemeda or something.
Kakumta.
I don't know.
No,
I like the funny acronyms a bit more, to be honest. But WeGo has a downtown transfer center that is 2 levels and includes heated/cooled waiting areas and a convenience store. Surprisingly.
Yeah, so it's like the bus subway in Boise, but not underground. And it's in the bottom of a parking garage instead.
That's not bad.
Oh.
That's not bad at all. I wish we had one of those here in Salt Lake.
What do we need one of those for?
Efficient land use.
But what do we need a bus transit center downtown for when we have rail stations?
Because we gotta put the buses somewhere.
Oh, so you want to do that? Like, so you want to take that lot next to North Temple,
Yeah.
right?
And
you want to put a 2 or 3 level bus terminal in the bottom of that, and then put the UTA headquarters on top.
I think a 1 level one would be adequate. We don't have that many buses.
If you combine North Temple and
Salt Lake
Central and provide capacity for future routes, then you would need
Fine, it
more.
can be 2 levels.
6 levels.
What?
We're doing Salesforce Transit Center times 5.
When you have to catch a bus from the 6th floor, and then it takes 5 years to make it down to the ground.
There's an elevator.
I'm canceling you. Back to Nashville.
Yeah, well, this WeGo Downtown Transfer Center is now named after Elizabeth Duff, the city's first woman bus driver, which is a much better name than a WeGo Transit Center.
I think it was called the WeGo Music City Transit Center or something like that.
That sounds more like an amusement ride to me, but
It does.
I guess that's okay. But all of this is not very impressive. Nashville's transit is closer in quality and ridership to Spokane, which has 700,000 people and 30,000 daily riders, than to a metro area of its own size, similar to Portland, which gets 10 times more riders than Nashville in pre-pandemic times. But things were almost not like this.
Yeah, there was
Monorail.
no monorails.
Monorail.
No monorails this time, I'm afraid.
Aww.
It's an entirely reasonable plan.
Normal plan?
Very reasonable. Probably one of the best light rail and BRT plans ever proposed.
All right, hit us.
Oh, yeah. Well, this proposal was a referendum in 2018 that would have built out a rapid transit system for the city. Let's move Nashville.
That's quite recent.
Yeah, it was very recent, to be honest.
Not as cool of a name as Sound Transit.
Yeah, it's still they could have done WeGo, Let's Move Music City, Nashville, Tennessee. They were being pretty conservative with the name.
Music City, Nashville.
Oh my
Like
god.
that.
After the state government passed a bill allowing localities to vote to tax themselves for transit improvements in 2017,
2017?
Yes, Kyle.
What?
Yeah.
It's a red state.
We're a red state.
Not that red of a state. This is in the
Okay.
South.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
We also had the Olympics, so...
True.
Yeah. This was the culmination of several years of work by both the Transit Authority and local planning board, and this is what came to a head in 2017. They'd been working on a plan for better transit in Nashville for close to a decade, including trips to Denver to look at the Fast Trans program, and eventually shelved BRT lines in the late aughts. The plan included 26 miles of light rail with a downtown tunnel and 25 additional miles of improved bus and BRT service. The system was in a unique situation for American projects at this time, meant to serve only the city of Nashville.
Yeah, so this probably is why I'm going to say that this project may have been like a recipe for success, sort of, right? Because a lot of the problems with American light rail is that it tries to be a commuter rail and goes to the suburbs for reasons.
And sometimes that works. Usually it's not great.
Usually it results in, unless you have a very dense metro area, poor ridership on...
Especially since agencies seem to struggle to wrap their heads around
the idea of feeder buses. Yeah, real big problem for Americans. But they forecast that nearly 130,000 people would use the system daily by 2040. The first lines would open in 2019, and construction would wrap up by 2034. So
that's not bad for a system that small. That's quite good, actually.
Yeah, the plan also included funding for increased bus frequency to feed the system, and additional crosstown routes to improve mobility. Something that is, from looking at the map, clearly needed. All around, this would have been a big win and well worth its cost of somewhere between $5.4 and $8.4 billion, which by my calculations is something like $100 and $150 million per guideway mile, which is really entirely reasonable when you consider the fact that the project included a 1.8-mile subway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me.
And is being proposed in which year? 2017?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
2018 was the referendum.
2018.
But yeah.
Yeah, honestly, that tracks.
So, the project, right, it was introduced by a very popular mayor backed by the city's business community, which is a rarity, I will say, who are probably hurt by Nashville's terrible traffic at least as bad as anyone else. And early polling suggested that the program would sail by in the polls. But then disaster struck. The measure was defeated 64-36,
Ooh.
which I would like to mention is, barely passing in California if you reverse it the other way, just to reinforce my hate for California's plebiscite system.
Let's call it a California landslide.
It's a California scrape by is what it is. And just what happened. So number one, there was a scandal. So the previously popular, not anymore, mayor who had created and pushed the plan, whose name is Megan Barry, left office after revealing a 2-year-long affair with an office staffer and admitting to having misused government funds for personal purposes. This, by itself, would probably have made for a tight election, but then Americans for Prosperity got involved, and after a massive last-minute push involving more than 42,000 phone calls and 6,000 door knocks, plus advertising, they killed the project dead.
That's a lot of effort. Did they just see the mayor fall down backwards and just jump on this opportunity?
Well, they were probably going to jump on the opportunity anyway, but, this made it easy.
So who the hell goes around calling phones, knocking doors, and spending ad money to kill a transit project?
Go on, Alex.
I was just going to say, in my opinion, as being an American for prosperity, that does not sound very prosperous to me.
Well, we don't like economic development if it doesn't involve cars.
Which is really weird.
I wonder...
Because apparently spending lots on car development is good.
Yeah, I wonder where this money's coming from.
I would wonder if you could look at the episode title and find that out.
I wonder.
So explain Americans for Prosperity.
Alex, would you ask the question for me, please?
Oh my god.
Sure. What is Americans for Prosperity?
2 in 1 episode.
You're tainting the good name of the opening question.
2 in 1 episode.
2 questions in 1 episode. Wow.
Essentially,
the patrons are really getting what they pay for over here.
Shut the hell up.
Never.
Essentially, Americans for Prosperity is one of the most powerful libertarian, quote, advocacy, unquote, and I put that in quotes because libertarians only advocate against things, never for things, groups in the United States, responsible for derailing multiple transit programs as well as doing a whole host of other nefarious things around the country. They bring the expertise and technological proficiency of a sophisticated national organization to bear on local elections, where the other side normally consists of only local organizations and people. In the Nashville elections in particular, they really went all out. They gave every single person who was involved an iPad and other tech for canvassing and have algorithms designed to find those voters who are most likely to be easy to sway to their side. They also they would hunt you down specifically and target you until they changed your mind.
Great.
I'm not even kidding. This is from the article that I read about this. If they knocked on your door and you were not, and let's say you're the targeted voter, right, and you're at work, and Americans for Prosperity comes and knocks on your door and someone else answers the door, they won't even try. They just leave.
Oh.
Because they consider it a waste of time.
This seems unhealthy.
It's creepy, right?
It sounds like they're terrorizing people.
A little bit.
Bro, can't they just yell about stuff on the internet like everybody else?
They also use every American's favorite rallying cry, of course, which is less taxes to good effect. And the AFP is very good friends with the notorious Cato Institute and longtime enemy of the pod and anti-rail advocate Randall O'Toole, who you may remember from... this is a long time ago now. That's like episode 2, the last time we talked about Randall O'Toole. But he's kind of a notorious anti-light rail guy.
He just sits around and writes things against...
Light rail.
Yeah.
He really does not like light rail.
It doesn't matter if his logic's good or his reasoning's sound or if light rail is actually good or bad. He just likes saying things against it.
Yeah, they constantly spout his misinformed ramblings about transit to help sway the electorate. Even more interestingly, moving away from Nashville specifically, they put in the most effort in places where transit support is marginal. You won't see Americans for Prosperity campaigning against transit in Seattle or New York or San Francisco or like Boston, just in mid-sized cities without a long history of successful transit programs.
Maybe because in places like that, the electorate would see right through them.
For being idiots?
Yes.
Interesting.
Crazy.
So overall, I would say quite a sinister group, and they are everywhere. Americans for Prosperity has chapters in 36, mostly red, states.
So what is their, goal in existence? And I mean this in the most, existential and philosophical way.
To promote right-wing ideas, which means prosperity.
But what is
because transit is communist and the government trying to steal our freedom by raising taxes.
And roads are okay, though.
Yes, because I can drive wherever I want in my freedom car versus the commie wagon known as a train.
Which doesn't go anywhere, definitely. It just stays
Well,
parked.
it doesn't go directly where I want to go, and therefore that's bad. Always.
Yeah.
And that's bad if other people use it.
Yes. Because then they're stealing my freedom by taxing me.
Okay, Kyle, you're overthinking it. You're not supposed to think. You're supposed to just say, oh yeah, no, that's bad.
You're overthinking it, Kyle. It's just right-wing bullshit.
Yeah, silly me over here campaigning for, a better environment and cities that are pleasant for everybody to live in.
No, we need to stop the woke agenda in schools. We need to get rid of public transportation. We need to build more roads. We need to make it illegal to build apartments. We need to
make it illegal to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. So, libertarianism is fake, as it turns out. But anyway. So let's run down a list of things that they have done that are evil for transit specifically. I mean, they've done a lot of things that I consider very bad. Number 1, Arkansas. They killed off an $18 million improvement plan for transit in Little Rock, which would have included a short streetcar line.
Rip.
In Arizona, they tried to get the 2010 referendum on light rail expansion voted down. This is a failure for them, thankfully.
Phoenix is now reaping benefits.
The opening that they had the other day would have been killed if this had failed.
Take that, Koch brother.
In Indiana, they killed off a $500 million Republican-led plan to improve the bus system in Indianapolis and have been pushing the state's recent spree of anti-light rail and anti-bus lane laws. It is now illegal in the state of Indiana to build bus lanes or light rail.
What?
Correct.
Are
Even
they
if you do
on?
it with local money.
Why?
Wow. Because it's a commie wagon, that's why.
This does not deserve time in my brain.
In Michigan, they tried to get the referendum, which did some transit improvements in Detroit, including the streetcar now known as the Q line. They tried to get that voted down. Another failure, thankfully. And in Salt Lake City, Utah, yes, reader, Frontlines was nearly killed by the Koch brothers.
Thankfully not, because it's a nice project, turns out.
Apparently, during the campaign against the Frontlines program, they were handing out $50 gift cards in Walmart parking lots.
Bruh.
To represent the $50 it would cost every Utah taxpayer per year to build the program.
That's it? $50 a year?
Uh-huh.
Communism! I've paid $50 a year for much
doesn't
worse.
That mean... Doesn't that mean they were just subsidizing the plan and paying people?
Who would then pay sales tax?
No, the idea was just to get them to vote against it because they don't care if it actually... You see, the thing with the Koch brothers is they're not actually against public transportation for libertarian reasons. They're against it because they're oil billionaires and they want to sell oil to fill your car.
Oh, that's why they do all this crap.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was thinking too hard. Oil.
No, the Koch brothers who fund Americans for Prosperity are oil billionaires who do not want transit because it makes people not drive.
So they don't actually care about how much taxes people are paying for
because
what?
Nashville would have become, under this program, one of America's best transit cities, and therefore what is currently a very car-centric city would have become a much more transit and walking-centric city. And therefore they lose money because they can't sell as much oil and destroy the environment as much.
See, I have a tough time believing in absolute evil, but I think the Koch brothers are actually just evil.
Yes.
Probably could have just led with oil, but then the episode would have been over.
This is true. Other places they have, messed with things include Nashville, Austin. You remember the first 2 times Austin tried to build light rail? Yeah, that was the Koch brothers why that didn't happen. New Jersey, when they were trying to do some NJT improvements with a gas tax hike, as well as many, many other places and other things that do not include transit.
Oil. Gotcha.
Yes. Other evildoers who help pay for Americans for Prosperity include Uber.
Checks out.
Who has noted public transportation as being one of their chief rivals in urban mobility. There are 2 reasons that public transit was in decline in this country between 2015 and 2018. Number 1 was because the economy was really good and gas was cheap.
And number 2 was subsidized Uber.
Was Uber.
Because in its early growth stages.
Because it was really cheap.
Uber subsidies were through the roof.
Yes. So yeah. Also fossil fuel companies.
Am I correct in thinking that the Koch brothers also pay for Turning Point USA, or is that a different...
Oh yeah, they give money to TPUSA.
Toilet Paper USA, woo!
So. Yeah. So I guess the question is, what is to be done about this? My idea is to do Americans for Prosperity, but for transit. Right? All of us transit people form a national think tank that goes around to small places and gives people's resources to make transit projects pass.
Do really creepy canvassing and stand in parking lots.
Why not?
Fire with fire or something.
So you mean Americans for actual prosperity then?
Americans for actual prosperity instead of Americans for prosperity. Yeah, AFAP instead of AFP.
This feels like the same issue as gerrymandering, where Democratic legislators are unwilling to gerrymander.
This is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. This is not an evil activity because we're not advocating for evil things. The only reason that they're extremely very good, very well done, and targeted canvassing is bad is not because it's targeted canvassing, it's because the thing they're doing with it is evil.
Interesting. Still seems kind of creepy, but public records are public records.
Public records are public records. Also, you should join up with your local transit advocacy organization so that they can defeat the Koch brothers.
The war on cars was never real. It's always been the war on the Koch brothers.
Yeah, it's always been the war on trains, actually, and now we're turning the tide in the war. I'm joining the war on trains on the side of trains.
It's really just been the war on oil money this whole time, hasn't it?
Yeah. It all comes back to that. Well, not all, but a lot.
Most people don't give a shit how they're getting places. They just want to get there.
Well.
Most people.
Yeah.
Majority.
And I'm going to say, we can't let these guys keep winning because now Nashville is never going to have good public transportation for, probably the next 30 years, which means gazillions of tons of carbon dumped into the air. And there's this whole thing called climate change going on. I don't know if you've seen it, but LA is flooding. Chile is burning. The ice caps are melting. It's a good time. Oh, and the lake is drying up here.
Whoa.
So, support transit. I don't know. Hack your local AFP. Or infiltrate and destroy from the inside your local Americans for Prosperity chapter. I don't know.
Something like that.
Any more comments?
Koch brothers dumb. Oh, brother dumb. Oil bad.
Well.
Yeah.
Do grassroots.
Join UTRU. Join the Utah RPA. Go to Slurm. I don't know. Join
the Utah 534.
Editor's note, Alex means the 435. It's a pun on the area code.
Which is the rural advocates group.
Oh, that's nice.
Yep.
All the people who get the absolute butt end of our transit system, i.e. none of it.
Yep.
Yeah. So please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, and to follow and leave us a rating on iTunes and Spotify. If you like what we do here, please consider becoming a member on Patreon. Patrons receive early access to all of our regular content, as well as exclusive content and occasional merch drops. Speaking of patrons... At We Go Star Tier,
What? That's offensive.
we have Zach Adams.
At Electric Double Truck, We Go Star Tier.
No, at We Go Star Tier.
Are we having tier deflation this time?
Yeah, we're having tier deflation instead of inflation.
Okay.
At the West Bank Shuttle version of that, we have generic GT. At the good bus routes, the 5 good bus routes in Nashville or whatever, the 7 good bus routes in Nashville.
Well, you can't give all 7 to the front runner patrons. You gotta share a little bit.
No, they get the
10-minute bus routes. There are 2 of them that run 10 minute all day.
At the 10-minute Nashville bus routes,
The 55 and the 56.
we have Curtis Herring, Devin Zander, McKay Ransom, Phobos 2390, and Tony Stunts.
Well, at the 12-minute bus routes in Nashville tier, the Red Line tier at $5 a month, we have Brian Smith, Christopher Whaley, DJ
Hi, Will.
Watkins, Elijah Kensler, G4, Jacob Whitecotton, Jesse Mayo, Reluctant LA Resident, and Robert P. Walsh.
And at the 2 15-minute all-day bus route tier, the 22 and the 50, we have Alex Dykelski, Alice MYOB, Ben Busath, Bradley Bondi, Ethan McDonald, Evelyn Gonza12, Jack McCoskey, Martine Heckler Martinez, Matt Gray, Oliver, Seth, and Zach Verstott.
At the 4 crosstown bus routes, we have Benjamin Wood, Joshua S. Horvath, and Kapil. Hooray.
Woo.
Yeah, thank you all.